Dinar Shift. We start today's program by plunging straight into a narrative that has captured the imagination of the global currency community, creating a wave of discussion and intrigue that is truly unprecedented. This is the story that has dominated forums, group chats, and countless conversations, weaving itself into the very fabric of speculative financial analysis. Whether you are tuned in from home on your daily commute or catching this news update the moment it goes live, we urge you to stay focused and absorb every detail of this complex, captivating scenario. This is not just a passing update. It's an in-depth exploration of a highly requested, fictional development that has created a firestorm of curiosity across our entire community. We are dissecting a fascinating what-if event, the hypothetical opening of a limited 3-day Vietnam Dong intake window, a scenario where all existing note types, both old and new, are accepted without any form of restriction or exclusion. This entire broadcast is framed as a scenario-based analysis intended solely for entertainment, exploration, and dramatic storytelling. Yet the underlying concept has generated powerful excitement because it mirrors the type of coordinated monetary movement that viewers often associate with large-scale economic transitions. So, settle in as we meticulously unpack every angle of this dramatic, imagined event, providing a slow, clear, and thoroughly engaging breakdown of the entire fictional plot development. Imagine a completely fictional morning where financial headlines flash the news of a tightly controlled, 72-hour window suddenly becoming active across the nation. In this dramatic storyline, this limited period allows for every single variation of the Vietnam Dong currency, from the older traditional paper notes to the newer, more durable polymer notes, spanning all denominations from the smallest to the largest, to be brought into designated centralized intake locations. Crucially, the central command in this fictional world declares absolutely no limitations, no exclusions, and no restrictions based on the design or series of the note. This fictional news breaks with the force of an electrical current, instantly electrifying conversations in every corner of the globe. The key detail emphasized throughout this imagined story is the complete removal of any separation between different print series, required years, or styles. Every single note is portrayed as being accepted equally during this brief, intensely controlled period of intake. In this imagined global landscape, the reaction from currency enthusiasts is immediate, multifaceted, and deeply emotional. You can picture a flurry of excitement, coupled with a palpable undercurrent of nervousness, as questions abound and rapid movements begin to define the scene. A mere 3-day window. In the context of any financial storyline, particularly one involving the full and complete acceptance of all note types, immediately injects a powerful sense of urgency and profound curiosity. The communities in this fictional world are instantly swamped with questions. What is the underlying purpose of this sudden event? What potential shifts are being prepared for after the intake process concludes? Is this short window a prelude to a much larger, forthcoming economic restructuring within the narrative? Our focus today is to navigate this entire speculative landscape, exploring the detailed implications of this fictional sequence of events with meticulous attention. The limited time frame and the comprehensive acceptance criteria suggest a highly intentional operation designed to precede a major plot point in the fictional economy. Within the narrative framework of this specific scenario, a national financial authority opening a narrow 3-day intake window is never presented as a random or arbitrary event. The script treats this action as a calculated and carefully planned move, suggesting deep-seated coordination, systematic preparation, and a system-wide evaluation process occurring behind the scenes. A timed intake window of this nature implies a core objective. The fictional banking structure is intentionally seeking to have all notes in circulation, encompassing both the old and the new, brought in for essential verification, organization, and digital accounting. This dramatic plot device is often seen in stories where a country is preparing to undertake a significant overhaul or restructuring of its entire currency system. Before any large-scale, consequential steps can be taken in the narrative, the entire existing supply of notes must first be systematically gathered, meticulously checked, and fully tallied for the records. This type of meticulous gathering and tallying is a classic storytelling device used to build suspense and imply significant future events, whether in futuristic economic sagas, high-stakes political thrillers, or grounded financial dramas. Crucially, in this particular script, the full acceptance of every note type strongly suggests that the central purpose is not to create division or to filter out specific series, but rather to perform a complete and comprehensive sweep. This intake is dramatically designed to completely clean the slate before a fictional next phase begins within the country's economy. This core plot point is what generates so much tension for the audience, as it heavily implies that a bigger, undisclosed change is on the horizon, even if the script remains silent on the exact nature of that next step. The very act of the intake window closing is intended to be a moment of deep anticipation, signaling the end of one chapter and the impending start of the next. As the fictional news of this extraordinary event ripples and spreads across this imagined world, the emotional response from people holding the Vietnam Dong is both immediate and profoundly varied. Within this fictional community, some holders are depicted as being overcome with excitement, viewing this limited intake window as the pivotal moment they have spent years anticipating in the narrative. Conversely, others are portrayed as nervous, grappling with uncertainty about the meaning of the event and unsure how quickly they must act before the deadline arrives. A significant number of characters are shown to be in a state of sheer disbelief, questioning the authenticity of the report, debating the longevity of the window, and struggling to decide whether they should move quickly to take full advantage of the intake period before it inevitably shuts down. The fictional communication channels, including message boards and social groups, are instantly ablaze with activity as characters share their individual experiences. They report on how different intake locations are handling the surge, describe the smoothness of the overall process, and provide confirmation on whether older notes are indeed being accepted without any question or debate. This emotional energy is extremely high within the narrative, largely because the concept of all notes being universally accepted, particularly older, more vintage series, effect. Ively removes a common anxiety often expressed by characters in this fictional community, the deeply ingrained fear that they might have acquired the wrong notes, or that their series would be rejected at a later date. The storyline dramatically intensifies the tension by showing crowds moving quickly, checking their private storage boxes, carefully organizing large bundles of notes, and ensuring everything is prepared before the window's impending closure. The scenario transforms into a moment of collective unified motion, where fictional characters feel an acute sense of participation in something historically significant and meaningful. A central focus of this entire narrative is the powerful, unifying message that every single note counts: older printings, newer polymer versions, small denominations, large denominations, and absolutely everything in between. In fictional currency stories, this universal acceptance is a critical plot element because it strategically eliminates the technical barriers that often plague the minds of the characters. For instance, if a character holds older notes from the 1990s, they may naturally question their continuing validity. Similarly, a character holding the newer polymer notes might wonder if their series will receive preferred treatment or priority. In this compelling scenario, the fictional authorities unequivocally declare that all notes are fundamentally equal during the critical intake window, which immediately creates a powerful sense of harmony and unity within the storyline. This particular detail is not merely included for dramatic flair, it serves a crucial narrative purpose. By unifying the fictional community and removing the fear-driven divisions that often exist between different note series, the script ensures that everyone is on the same level before the fictional system progresses to its next, yet-to-be die. Closed phase. For the audience, this concept generates a sense of simplicity and remarkable clarity, effectively keeping them deeply engaged in the unfolding situation and prompting them to wonder about the true, deeper motive behind this decision for universal, equal acceptance. When fictional characters make their way to their designated intake locations in the script, they are met with short, straightforward, and consistent instructions. There are no lengthy explanations, no technical lectures, and no cautionary warnings. Instead, they receive simple, direct confirmations, such as, "Yes, we are accepting all notes during this intake window." These concise responses are used to add another layer of suspense to the narrative, as they strongly imply that the frontline workers have been given highly specific, top-down instructions, suggesting a high degree of coordination at a national organizational level within the story's banking structure. The fictional banks are notably not questioning why the notes are being presented, nor are they discouraging participation. Instead, their personnel are shown to be processing each intake quickly, marking it as officially received, and sending the individuals swiftly on their way. This highly structured, clean environment is meticulously crafted within the story to reinforce the core idea that this complex operation was pre-planned and executed, rather than being a spontaneous or reactive event. For the viewers, these details, simple yet dramatically powerful, drive curiosity. Why are the instructions so incredibly brief? Why is everything being accepted without any form of debate? Why are the workers adhering so strictly to a preset script? All of these carefully chosen elements work together to ensure the fictional news segment feels tight, controlled, and intentionally designed to set up a future development in the narrative. The consistency of the process across different locations serves to amplify the sense of a massive, synchronized operation unfolding across the country. One of the most surprising fictional elements strategically included in this scenario is the core idea that there are absolutely no limits on the quantity of notes a person can bring in during the brief intake window. In many real-world financial operations, temporary exchange periods frequently impose caps or restrictions, but the script deliberately removes them entirely. This dramatic choice significantly amplifies the storyline's tension because it suggests that the fictional authorities desire all notes, regardless of the size of the holding, the denomination, or the age of the note itself. This specific detail is a powerful engine for the characters' imaginations. Why would a sophisticated system willingly allow unlimited intake unless it urgently needed full circulation data? Why would it do this unless it was actively preparing the entire system for a massive upcoming event? The concept of no limits strongly implies that a fictional adjustment or significant restructuring might be patiently waiting on the other side of the intake window's closure. These are the kinds of open-ended questions that are used to generate deep suspense and keep the audience engaged until the very final moments of the story. The detail of unlimited intake adds a compelling blend of both urgency and powerful inclusiveness, making every fictional holder feel that their participation is valuable and that they have a distinct role to play in this dramatically unfolding event. This choice ensures that the perceived stakes are incredibly high for every person involved in the fictional world. In the script, analysts within the fictional world immediately begin labeling this brief intake period as a cleanup phase or a pre-adjustment T-sweep, strongly suggesting that the singular purpose is to efficiently gather every single note before the system dramatically shifts into a new gear. These fictional analysts speculate that once a country has successfully collected all existing notes, they can then proceed to sort, destroy any damaged currency, archive the older printings, and critically rebalance their internal supply in preparation for a hypothetical currency evolution. This type of plot element is a staple in fictional economic storylines because it establishes a believable sense of preparation and foresight without giving away the final outcome of the narrative. The window is intentionally small, the intake is designed to be fast, and once it closes, the characters fully anticipate a subsequent quiet period, during which the fictional system will recalibrate internally. This subsequent quiet period then becomes the fertile ground for theories, predictions, and heightened anticipation, all of which are designed to enhance the inherent drama and excitement of the storyline. Viewers remain completely hooked, intensely wanting to know exactly what happens after the intake window finally closes, even though the script explicitly states that nothing concrete has been officially announced beyond the fictional scenario itself. The use of this quiet period is a masterstroke in narrative timing, designed to keep the audience guessing and fully invested in the future developments of the fictional economy. As the fictional storyline progresses, detailed reports begin to pour in from characters across diverse regions, all confirming their successful visit to a local intake location during the high-stakes 3-day window. In this scenario, all of these various accounts share a consistent and dominant theme. The process is repeatedly described as smooth, fast, and strangely calm. Characters describe walking into their intake centers, fully expecting to encounter lengthy lines, widespread confusion, or even resistance. Instead, they are met with the perfect opposite: meticulously organized desks, tellers who are immediately ready, quiet, and professional instructions, and the immediate, unquestioning acceptance of every note presented on the counter. According to these fictional reports, the tellers are notably not debating which note series qualifies, not checking long lists of criteria, and not calling supervisors for clarification or authorization. They simply accept the notes, count them efficiently, and provide the individual with a brief, standardized confirmation slip. This pervasive simplicity becomes a core storytelling element because it stands in direct, stark contrast to what many fictional holders had long anticipated after years of deeply held speculation and uncertainty. The intake workers are consistently portrayed as polite, yet firmly adhering to their short instructions, refusing to offer any extraneous details about what might occur after the window closes. This deliberate limitation of information serves to fuel even greater curiosity within the story and drives the fictional community into even deeper, more speculative discussions about why everything is suddenly feeling so incredibly coordinated and controlled. After the first full day of the fictional intake window has passed, characters in the storyline begin to notice a subtle yet meaningful shift in the overall atmosphere. It is not characterized by loud chaos, frantic action, or dramatic public scenes. Instead, it is defined by a sense of quiet, steady, and disciplined control. This pervasive quietness is presented as immensely meaningful to the audience of the story because it powerfully suggests that a significant event is unfolding behind the scenes, an event that has not yet been revealed to the public within the fictional world. In many speculative narratives, this calm before the shift is a narrative technique specifically employed to build tension and encourage viewers to lean forward, fully anticipating what might soon follow. Characters in this fictional scenario interpret the deep calm as a definitive sign that the intake is merely one step within a much larger, predetermined arc, suggesting it fits into a precise, planned sequence rather than being a random occurrence. Some fictional analysts within the narrative begin drawing parallels to historical patterns in similar stories, noting how these quiet, controlled periods often appear immediately before major announcements, system restructurings, or comprehensive updates. Again, while none of this is officially confirmed within the narrative itself, the atmosphere is meticulously designed to make both the characters and the viewers feel as though they are standing on the very edge of a monumental transition point. This prolonged moment of quiet becomes a powerful dramatic device that keeps the audience tuned in with a significantly heightened level of attention and engagement. Within the imaginary world of this scripted event, fictional media outlets begin the challenging task of breaking down what the 3-day window could possibly signify, doing so very carefully and cautiously, deliberately avoiding any definitive predictions. Their fictional coverage focuses heavily on the undisputed basics. All notes are accepted, old and new are included, and there are absolutely no limitations or exclusions. They then shift into a phase of controlled speculation, posing critical, open-ended questions to their viewers. Why is this happening now? Why the policy of accepting all notes? Why is the window constrained to such a dramatically short time frame? Analysts on the fictional news panels continue. Lie remind their audiences that intake events of this scale, even in imaginary environments, demand extensive planning, coordination, and internal organizational structure. The fictional media experts emphasize that such a significant window does not typically appear out of nowhere or without a specific narrative purpose. News panelists within the script engage in debates over whether the fictional government is preparing for widespread digitization of the currency, whether they are updating their existing currency tracking systems, or if they are simply conducting a thorough, comprehensive circulation audit. While none of the fictional panelists claim to possess the definitive answer, they all universally acknowledge that the timing of the event feels deeply intentional and orchestrated. These focused discussions are designed to mirror the way real-world analysts break down unfolding stories, lending the fictional world a sense of grounded, believable rhythm that ensures the viewer remains completely immersed in the unfolding drama and narrative tension. By the second day of the fictional intake window, the dominant emotions among the characters in the story begin to noticeably shift from initial shock to a settled sense of realization and action. Characters who were initially nervous on day one now feel a growing sense of calmness once they observe that older notes are genuinely being accepted without any form of hesitation or pushback. Those who initially hesitated and waited now start to feel a sharp sense of urgency as the critical deadline rapidly approaches. Some fictional individuals who had acquired notes years ago but never truly believed anything would change begin to seriously reevaluate their past choices in light of the unfolding reality. Simultaneously, characters who have followed the speculative storyline for a long time feel a powerful sense of validation as the intake window closely resembles the events they had long imagined might eventually occur. This rising emotional intensity creates a series of memorable moments in the story, such as fictional families gathering together to meticulously sort through their notes, friends calling one another to confirm the smooth process, and online groups buzzing with a constant stream of real-time opinions and updates. This dramatic emotional arc effectively deepens the entire narrative and adds genuine human weight to the scenario, allowing viewers to easily connect with the inner experiences and motivations of the characters. It successfully makes the fictional world feel alive, reflective, and relatable, fundamentally transforming a simple monetary intake event into something that truly resonates on a deep, personal level within the overall fictional story. One of the most powerful and strategic storytelling choices in this fictional scenario is the critical decision to limit the entire intake period to an exact duration of 3 days. Narrative writers frequently employ these extremely short windows in financial thrillers to successfully generate and sustain a feeling of urgency, tension, and narrative momentum. A 3-day limit immediately communicates to the audience that the fictional authorities are operating under a deeply tight timeline. They are portrayed as wanting the intake process to be completed with maximum efficiency and without leaving the window open long enough to allow for unnecessary delays, potential market manipulation, or widespread public confusion. Within the storyline, the imagined experts suggest that the short window is intentional precisely because a longer period might actively slow down the mysterious next phase of whatever the financial system is diligently preparing for. The fictional analysts also meticulously explain that along. ER window could unintentionally permit outside pressures or internal misunderstandings to actively develop and take hold. By rigidly adhering to the 3-day limit, the fictional authorities ensure that the event remains sharp, fast, and completely controlled. This specific narrative element is a strategic tool designed to keep the audience alert and fully engaged, constantly reinforcing the idea that every single moment is critical and that viewers must remain engaged to discover what happens once the fixed countdown finally ends. It is a calculated narrative technique that powerfully amplifies the overall suspense of the storyline. As is common in a fictional storyline that involves major, high-stakes financial operations, a wide array of theories immediately begins to circulate about what could be occurring behind the closed doors of the system. Some fictional commentators suggest that the comprehensive intake is merely one part of a much larger, ongoing modernization program. Others highly speculate that the fictional government is conducting an essential supply audit before actively updating their entire monetary system structure. Some characters even guess that the intake is directly tied to possible future reforms that are being prepared within the narrative. While none of these various theories are ever confirmed as fact, they all successfully add significant thematic weight and deep intrigue to the unfolding story. In fictional economic dramas, these behind-the-scenes theories function as the vital connective tissue between the documented events, helping the audience to fully imagine the depth and complexity of the fictional world even when the script intentionally chooses not to explicitly reveal every detail. The circulating theories successfully add layers of mystery and ambiguity, significantly raising the stakes of the storyline and actively encouraging viewers to form their own unique interpretations of the events. This deliberate creative ambiguity is a classic storytelling method, ensuring that the fictional world continues to feel vast, complex, and full of hidden motives and potential developments. Even though the audience is fully aware that the scenario is designed purely for entertainment and narrative engagement, analysts in this fictional world discuss how truly unusual it is to witness so many intake centers operating in perfect, synchronized harmony. They note that for such a scenario to unfold with such professional smoothness, extensive training sessions must have been conducted beforehand. The tellers must have received incredibly clear and consistent guidance. The physical locations must have successfully updated their internal systems. The necessary technology must have been fully prepared well ahead of time. The fictional reporters are keen to emphasize that intake events of this magnitude require multiple layers of internal preparation, even if the public is only observing the superficial surface-level interactions. This deep-seated detail lends significant weight and credibility to the overall storyline because it strongly suggests that the fictional authorities invested a substantial amount of time and resources into getting fully ready. They are not portrayed as improvising or merely reacting to a situation, they are clearly executing a detailed pre-existing plan. While the script never definitively reveals the ultimate purpose of the plan, the strong implication that the entire banking system prepared extensively encourages both the characters and the viewers to actively wonder what the true central motivation behind this complex operation could be. It successfully creates the sense that the intake window is simply one chapter in a much larger fictional narrative, and that the story is steadily building toward a meaningful and dramatic climax once the intake period officially ends and the resulting commotion settles. As the fictional event unfolds, characters in neighboring countries immediately begin to take significant notice. The storyline carefully portrays fictional analysts from all around the world observing the event, taking meticulous notes, and engaging in intense discussions about what this limited intake window might ultimately imply for future regional financial developments. This particular detail skillfully gives the narrative a powerful sense of scale, illustrating that the fictional Vietnam Dong intake is not merely a domestic storyline, but one that is attracting significant regional and global curiosity. In the story, fictional foreign reporters mention that events like this could be interpreted as signaling broader modernization efforts, system recalibration, or intense internal auditing. Crucially, all of these observations are strictly framed within the context of the fictional world. This global attention adds substantial dramatic weight because it suggests that other nations, markets, and institutions are actively watching the situation, not to interfere, but to meticulously analyze the meaning of the event. It successfully creates the feeling that the fictional intake event is part of a much broader, integrated economic atmosphere within the imagined world, where shifts in one country are inevitably going to draw close attention from others. This powerful sense of global awareness helps to build narrative momentum and keeps viewers completely glued to the unfolding fictional storyline. As the fictional intake window swiftly moves into its final critical day, the tension in the storyline rises perceptibly. Characters who deliberately waited until the last possible moment suddenly feel a sharp, intense pressure to act immediately. Some fictional individuals who remained skeptical throughout the process begin to reconsider their stance, realizing that the window will soon close forever. The narrative also focuses on the intake centers becoming slightly busier as the inevitable procrastinators finally arrive. Even though everything remains fundamentally calm and professionally organized, the overall energy feels distinctly different, more focused, more urgent, and more highly charged. Characters start sending immediate reminders to friends and family, urging them not to miss the final hours of the limited window. In many fictional thrillers, the final day of an event like this serves as a potent symbol of the turning point, the moment where anticipation reaches its absolute peak just before a significant shift or reveal occurs. This pervasive countdown element successfully creates a cinematic, high-stakes feeling, making viewers feel as if they are watching the crucial moments immediately preceding a major narrative unveiling. This powerful sense of a ticking clock successfully heightens the audience's attention, drawing them even deeper into the intricacies of the story and emotionally preparing them for whatever the next chapter holds after the intake window finally closes. As the fictional clock rapidly approaches the final hours of the intake window, the storyline dramatically intensifies once again. The intake centers remain calm but are now bustling with characters arriving in steady, determined waves. The staff at the fictional intake locations diligently adhere to their simple, core instructions, accept all notes, process them efficiently, and provide the standard confirmation. Characters continually describe the environment as strangely peaceful, almost too calm considering the immense significance they believe the intake might ultimately represent. This profound peacefulness dramatically enhances the narrative tone because it strongly suggests that the system knows precisely what it is doing, even if the public remains largely unaware of the full plan. In speculative fiction, these quiet closing hours are frequently utilized to build a deep sense of suspense, symbolizing the final deep inhale before the entire story takes a sharp, dramatic turn. The audience naturally begins to wonder what will happen immediately after the midnight deadline passes. Will something change right away? Will the fictional system issue an immediate announcement, or will everything go completely silent for a prolonged period of internal recalibration and processing? This powerful uncertainty is the key ingredient that makes the fictional scenario so deeply engaging, as it deliberately leaves ample room for imagination and the promise of future dramatic developments as the historic intake period finally comes to its highly anticipated close. Once the fictional intake window officially closes, characters in the storyline immediately begin to engage in intense, speculative discussion about what they believe must come next. Some characters expect immediate, high-profile announcements, although the fictional analysts caution that major financial changes rely, if ever, happen instantly. Others predict that a necessary period of silence will occur, followed later by eventual adjustments or updates to the system. Some fictional individuals even predict that the intake was purely a large-scale organizational sweep, not necessarily a guaranteed precursor to dramatic immediate change. This pervasive uncertainty successfully generates lively and compelling discussion within the storyline, mirroring real-world behavior whenever people attempt to interpret limited or ambiguous information. These diverse, highly speculative, and emotionally charged expectations give the viewers a powerful sense of connection to the fictional world, making them feel like they are active participants in the ongoing conversation. The narrative carefully reinforces that nothing concrete has been officially confirmed. However, the storyline remains deeply charged with potential, keeping viewers intensely curious about how the fictional authorities will ultimately address the completion of the massive intake operation and what the next chapter of the story may finally reveal to the public. The suspense is deliberately maintained to ensure continued engagement. After the fictional intake window officially slams shut, the intake centers immediately lock their doors and shift into an intensive processing mode. This crucial part of the storyline focuses entirely on the unseen, behind-the-scenes work of counting, meticulously recording, verifying, sorting, and digitally cataloging every single note collected during the intensive 3-day operation. The narrative describes entire rooms filled with dedicated staff members, supervisors diligently reviewing the initial counts, sophisticated machines verifying the notes' authenticity, and massive databases receiving all the updated totals. This fictional system reset is portrayed as a highly technical, methodical, and procedural operation, emphasizing that the central purpose of the intake was focused on gathering and organizing, not on immediate exchange or conversion. The script effectively uses this moment to stabilize the narrative pace, lending the storyline a grounded, almost procedural feeling. It is the type of detailed, behind-the-scenes sequence often used in thrillers to bridge the gap between high-intensity moments and future plot revelations. While nothing explosive or dramatic occurs during this fictional reset period, the audience is fully aware that what happens next, after all the notes have been meticulously processed and the data compiled, is the point where the storyline may finally take a sudden and profound new direction. The counting and verification process is the quiet, necessary work that precedes the next big narrative development. Once the fictional system begins the process of calculating and reviewing the final collected totals, the public enters what the storyline refers to as the anticipation phase. During this prolonged period, the fictional community starts paying extremely close attention to any possible updates, announcements, or statements that may follow the massive intake event. Characters eagerly discuss the possibility of future systemic changes, significant improvements, or large-scale modernization efforts within the fictional financial environment. Meanwhile, analysts in the story offer cautious advice that such intense recalibration periods can take a considerable amount of time, and that viewers should not be expecting immediate or instant changes. This crucial phase becomes a fundamental storytelling element because it perfectly sets the stage for future episodes, updates, or imagined developments in the story. It deliberately keeps the fictional world open-ended, ensuring that the storyline remains flexible, adaptable, and fully capable of future expansion. Viewers become deeply invested not because a definite event has happened yet, but because the fictional environment feels intensely charged with potential, making them eager to discover whatever comes next in this entertainment-based scenario. The anticipation itself becomes the core driving force of the ongoing narrative. As the fictional storyline expertly draws to a close, the final message delivered to the viewers is designed to be simple, clear, and highly engaging. It is an instruction to stay observant, stay calm, and stay connected as the narrative unfolds. In this fictional world, the 3-day Vietnam Dong intake window is deliberately not portrayed as an ending, but rather as the definitive beginning of a new, complex chapter. The policy of accepting all notes, old, new, large, and small, served as a crucial narrative device to successfully unify the fictional community and to generate powerful momentum for the next episode in the saga. The concluding message strongly emphasizes that the story is still actively evolving, and while no confirmation of any currency change or financial event is definitively stated within the fictional world, the scenario remains wide open for continued exploration in future updates and broadcasts. The audience is constantly reminded that this script represents a form of entertainment, speculation, and creative storytelling, specifically designed to build atmosphere and sustain suspense. As with all narrative-based content, viewers are strongly encouraged to simply enjoy the unfolding fictional journey and to continue following the channel as the story progresses into its highly anticipated next phase of development.